Life has a way of putting us in situations that feel impossible to manage. We work harder, we plan more, we strategize, and still the problem seems to grow bigger than our ability to handle it. And in those moments, we often think the answer is to push harder, to carry the burden a little longer. But that's not what God wants for us. He never asked us to bear the full weight of our struggles. He never asked us to live in constant anxiety. Instead, He calls us to trust Him fully, to surrender, and let Him handle what we cannot. There is a peace that only comes when you release control. Many people say they believe in God, but belief without trust is incomplete. Trust is active. It's not just words on our lips. It's an attitude of the heart that says, "Lord, I cannot, but you can." That is real faith. Not faith in yourself, not faith in circumstances, but faith in a God who knows the end from the beginning. You see, one of the greatest struggles we face in life is the struggle to let go. We want to hold on to the steering wheel, thinking that if we try hard enough, we can fix everything. But the truth is, some things are beyond your power to fix, and when you finally accept that, you discover the beauty of surrender. Surrender is not weakness. It's the ultimate act of strength because it means trusting in someone far greater than yourself. Think about the Israelites at the edge of the Red Sea. Pharaoh's army was behind them, the water in front of them, and nowhere to run. If you or I were there, we would probably panic. We'd start looking for boats or trying to swim. But God didn't tell them to do any of that. He told them to trust Him, and when they did, the waters parted. What seemed like a dead end became the pathway to their deliverance. That's what happens when you surrender. God steps in and does what you cannot do. Right now, you might be standing in front of your own Red Sea. Maybe it's a broken relationship. Maybe it's a financial crisis. Maybe it's a diagnosis from the doctor that shook your world. You've tried everything you know. You've prayed, you've worked, you've worried. But worry never solved a single problem. Worry only wears you down. Jesus said, "Which of you by worrying can add 1 hour to your life?" The answer is none of us. So why do we keep trying to do God's job? When you surrender, you stop fighting battles that were never yours to fight. You give those battles to the one who has never lost. God doesn't need your stress. He needs your trust. And when you trust Him fully, something changes inside you. Peace replaces panic. Fear gives way to faith. Hope rises where despair once lived. That's not because the problem disappears overnight, but because you know who holds the outcome. Some of you are exhausted because you've been carrying a load you were never meant to carry. You wake up worried, you go to bed anxious, and in between, your heart feels heavy. My friend, that's not the life God intended for you. He said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Notice He didn't say, "Come to me, and I'll give you more to do." He said, "Rest." And that rest comes when you trust Him with everything. The things you understand and the things you don't. The things you can control and the things you never could. Today, I want to invite you to do something radical. Take your hands off the problem. Stop trying to manipulate the outcome. Stop losing sleep over something God already has in His hands. Right now, say, "Lord, I trust you. I give you my future, my family, my finances, my fears. I give you everything." When you pray that and mean it, you will discover a freedom you've never known before. Because the truth is, when you surrender to God, you are not losing. You are winning. You are placing your life into the care of the one who loves you more than you can imagine, and who has never failed anyone who trusted Him. Surrender is not the end of the road. It's the beginning of peace. When you stop struggling and start trusting, you make room for miracles. So let go, release it all to Him, and then watch what He will do. Because when you trust God fully and let Him handle the rest, you will see that His plan is always better than yours. Life often feels like a journey through uncertain roads. We plan, we dream, and we try to take control of every step, hoping that everything will fall into place. But no matter how hard we work, no matter how carefully we plan, there will always come moments when things are beyond our control. And in those moments, the question is not how strong we are, but how much we trust the one who holds the universe in his hands. Trusting God fully is not easy for many people because trust requires faith. It requires you to believe in something you cannot see, to surrender to a plan you do not fully understand, and that goes against our nature. We want to hold the steering wheel of life. We want to make sure everything happens the way we think it should. But the truth is, when we insist on controlling everything, we rob ourselves of peace and we make ourselves weary. God never intended for you to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. That is why he invites us to cast all our cares upon him, because he cares for us. When you trust him, you take the heavy burdens from your hands and place them into hands that never fail. You acknowledge that he knows the beginning from the end, and that his plan is far greater than yours. So many of us live in constant anxiety because we are afraid of what might happen tomorrow. Fear whispers, what if things don't work out? What if you fail? What if you lose everything? And if you listen long enough to fear, you will never experience the joy of faith. Faith responds to fear by saying, what if God's plan is better than I imagined? What if he is preparing something far beyond my expectations? Faith is not about ignoring reality. It is about believing that God is greater than reality. The Bible reminds us, for we walk by faith, not by sight. That means even when you cannot see the way, even when the road ahead looks dark, you take the next step trusting that he is guiding your path. Think of the Israelites standing before the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army closing in behind them. They had no options, no solutions, and no escape. But God made a way where there was no way. He parted the waters, and they walked through on dry ground. They did not have to figure it out. All they had to do was trust him and take the next step. Maybe today you are standing in front of your own Red Sea. It might be a broken relationship, a financial storm, a diagnosis that shook your world, or a door that seems permanently closed. You have prayed, you have tried everything, and you are exhausted. This is the moment to let go and trust God fully. This is the moment to believe that his ways are higher than your ways, and his thoughts are higher than your thoughts. When Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," he was not talking about a temporary break from trouble. He was offering a deep, unshakable peace that comes from knowing you are in God's hands. That peace is only possible when you stop trying to control everything and allow him to take the lead. True rest does not come from fixing every problem. It comes from trusting the one who can. And when you trust him completely, something beautiful happens. Panic gives way to peace, fear gives way to faith, and despair turns into hope. So I ask you today, what are you holding on to so tightly? Is it your future, your family, your finances, your health? Whatever it is too heavy for you to carry alone. Release it to God. Tell him, Lord, I trust you with my life, my dreams, my everything. And then leave it in his hands. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to know how everything will turn out. All you need is faith. Faith that he is good, faith that he is faithful, and faith that he will never leave you nor forsake you. And when you trust God fully and let him handle the rest, you will see doors open that you never imagined. You will find peace in the middle of storms, and you will experience the joy of knowing that you are never alone. Trust requires faith, and faith will lead you to a life of peace, a life of strength, and a life that rests in the hands of a God who never fails. Life is filled with moments when we feel cornered, overwhelmed, and powerless. We work hard, we plan carefully, and yet circumstances spiral beyond our control. There comes a time when human effort reaches its limit, and in those moments we are reminded of one powerful truth. What is impossible for man is possible for God. So many of us live carrying heavy burdens, thinking if we just try harder, worry more, or work longer, we can fix everything. But the reality is, there are problems no human strength can solve. Illness strikes without warning. Financial struggles appear without invitation. Relationships fall apart despite our best efforts. In these times, the temptation is to despair, to believe that the situation is hopeless. But that is where God steps in, because He is the God of the impossible. When you open the pages of Scripture, you see this truth repeated again and again. Think of the Israelites standing at the edge of the Red Sea. Behind them was Pharaoh's army, and before them an ocean that stretched endlessly. There was no escape, no human strategy, no plan that could work. But God did what no man could do. He parted the waters. What seemed like the end became the beginning of their deliverance. That is what happens when we trust God in the impossible. Consider the walls of Jericho. They were massive, fortified, and no army could bring them down. Yet when God gave the command, those walls crumbled at the sound of trumpets and the shout of His people, not by might, not by power, but by His Spirit. Or think of a young shepherd boy named David facing a giant warrior with nothing but a sling and a stone. To the world, it looked ridiculous, impossible. But when God is in the battle, the size of the giant doesn't matter. The victory is guaranteed. These stories are not just ancient history. They are living reminders that the same God who worked miracles then is still working today. The question is, do you believe it? Do you trust Him enough to place your impossible situation in His hands? Because faith is not just believing God can do something. It's believing He will do it according to His perfect plan and timing. We often say we trust God, but in reality we hold on tightly to control. We pray, but then we worry. We ask God to lead, but then we keep trying to take the wheel. Trust is not partial, it is total surrender. It means saying, Lord, I cannot do this on my own, but I know You can. It means letting go of fear, letting go of doubt, and resting in His power. Jesus said, with man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Those words are not just comforting, they are life-changing. They remind us that no sickness is too great for Him to heal. No marriage is too broken for Him to restore. No sin is too deep for Him to forgive, and no dream is too far for Him to fulfill. There is no mountain so high, no valley so low, that His power cannot reach. So, what is your Red Sea today? What is the wall that seems unbreakable? What is the giant that stands in your way? Maybe it's a financial crisis, a health diagnosis, a broken relationship, or a future that looks uncertain. Whatever it is, hear this truth: it is not bigger than your God. You may not see the way forward, but He does. You may not have the strength, but He does. You may not know how, but He knows. The key is to trust Him completely. Not halfway, not just when things are easy, completely, because the moment you do, peace will replace panic. Hope will replace despair. Faith will silence fear. When you hand over the problem to God, you are not giving up. You are moving up into the realm where miracles happen. And when God moves, the impossible becomes possible. The sea parts, the walls fall, the giants fall flat, not because of who we are, but because of who He is, the Almighty, the Everlasting, the one who never fails. So today, whatever you are facing, stop carrying the weight alone. Lay it down at His feet and say, Lord, this is too big for me, but it is not too big for You. Then stand back and watch what He will do. Because when you trust Him fully and let Him handle the rest, the impossible will bow to His power. There is a deep longing in every human heart for peace. People search for it in success, relationships, possessions, and even in the noise of this world. Yet, the more we chase after peace on our own terms, the further it seems to drift away. The truth is, real peace cannot be found in things or circumstances. It can only be found in trusting God fully and letting Him take control of what you cannot handle. There comes a time when you realize you're carrying a weight that was never meant for your shoulders. You've done everything you know to do, worked harder, prayed harder, worried longer, yet the problem still remains, and then you hear those quiet, powerful words from Scripture, "Be still and know that I am God." That is not just a suggestion, it's an invitation. It's God saying, "Stop fighting battles that I have already won. Stop carrying burdens that I want to carry for you." Trusting God fully is not easy. It goes against our nature to let go. We like control. We like to see the whole picture, to know how things will work out. But faith doesn't work that way. Faith is trusting the hand of God when you cannot trace His plan. It's believing that even in the dark, He is still leading you toward the light. When you choose to trust God, something powerful happens. Fear begins to lose its grip on your life. Worry begins to fade. You see, fear asks the question, what if things don't work out? Faith answers, what if God is doing something greater than I can see? And He always is. God's ways are higher than our ways, and His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. That means what you see as a setback might be a setup for something better. Think about the Israelites standing before the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army closing in behind them. To them, it was the end. There was no escape, no way out. But God said, "Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord." He didn't tell them to figure out a plan. He didn't ask them to build boats or negotiate with Pharaoh. He simply said, "Trust me." And when they obeyed, He parted the sea and led them to safety on dry ground. What looked like an impossible situation was God's opportunity to show His power. Some of you are standing before your own Red Sea right now. It might be a health crisis, it might be a financial storm, it might be a relationship that's breaking apart, and you've tried everything you know, but nothing seems to work. Today, God is saying the same thing to you. Be still, trust me, I've got this. Peace doesn't come from solving every problem. Peace doesn't come from having every answer. Peace comes when you put the problem in God's hands and leave it there. So many people pray and then take the problem back as if they can fix it better than He can. But when you truly trust Him, you don't just hand it over. You let go completely. You say, "Lord, I don't know how this will work out, but I know You do, and that's enough for me." Jesus said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Rest comes when you stop trying to control what only God can control. It comes when you trade your anxiety for His assurance, your fear for His faithfulness, your worry for His wisdom. When you trust God fully, peace becomes your reality, even before the answer comes. Because peace is not the absence of trouble. It's the presence of God in the middle of it. And the moment you let go and trust Him completely, that's the moment peace floods your soul like a river. So today, I challenge you, whatever you're facing, give it to Him. Stop fighting battles that belong to Him. Stop losing sleep over what you can't fix. Lift your hands and say, "Lord, I trust You with my future, my family, my finances, my life." And then stand still and watch what He will do. Because when you let go and trust God, you don't just find peace, you find victory. There is a battle that every person faces deep within their heart, a battle between faith and fear. Every day, fear whispers in your ear, telling you that things will never change, that your prayers are pointless, that the future is uncertain and dangerous. But faith speaks a different word, trust. Faith declares that there is a God who is in control, a God who never sleeps, a God who knows the end from the beginning, and He is for you, not against you. Life is filled with storms. Some storms shake your health, others shake your family, and others strike your finances or your peace of mind. And when those storms rage, fear is often the first voice you hear. Fear says, "What if you fail? What if you don't make it? What if God doesn't come through for you?" But faith speaks with a calm assurance. Even if the waves rise high, God is higher still. Even when the night seems long, the dawn will break because He is faithful. Faith over fear begins with a decision. It is a choice you make, not because your problems disappear, but because you know who holds the solution. Faith doesn't mean you have all the answers. Faith doesn't mean you understand every step. It means you trust the one who does. It means that even when you cannot see His hand, you believe His heart. Think about the disciples on the boat with Jesus during the storm. The wind howled, the waves crashed. Water filled the boat. They thought they were going to die. Fear took over, and they cried out, "Master, don't you care that we are perishing?" But Jesus stood and spoke, "Peace, be still," and the wind obeyed Him. In that moment, they learned that the presence of Jesus in the boat is greater than the power of any storm. That same presence is with you today. Maybe your storm looks different. Maybe it's a doctor's report that shook you to your core. Maybe it's a family conflict that breaks your heart. Maybe it's bills you can't pay or a future that feels uncertain. Fear will tell you to panic. Fear will tell you to give up. But faith whispers, "Stand firm. God is still in control." Faith over fear does not mean you ignore reality. It doesn't mean pretending the storm isn't real. It means acknowledging that there is a greater reality, God's power, God's promises, and God's presence. It means believing that nothing you face is stronger than the one who stands with you. When the Israelites were trapped between the Red Sea and Pharaoh's army, fear gripped their hearts. They said, "We are going to die here." But God said, "Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord." Then He parted the waters, and they walked through on dry ground. That same God still parts seas today, not always in the way you expect, but always in the way that is best for you. Fear limits your life, but faith unlocks God's best. Fear says, "You're not enough." Faith says, "God is more than enough." Fear focuses on what you can't do. Faith focuses on what God can do, and here's the truth. You cannot live in fear and faith at the same time. One will always win. So which voice will you listen to? Today, God is calling you to choose faith over fear. To trust Him fully, not just with some areas of your life, but with all of it. Your health, your family, your finances, your future. Lay it all at His feet. Release the control you've been holding so tightly and watch what He will do. Faith doesn't promise that storms will never come, but it does promise that you will never face them alone. God has never failed, and He will not start now. So when fear rises, lift your eyes higher. Look to the one who calmed the storm with a word, who opened seas with a breath, who defeated death itself so you could live in victory. Do not let fear write the story of your life. Let faith take the pen and watch as God writes something beautiful, something greater than you ever imagined. Trust Him, believe Him, and when you do, you will discover that faith over fear is not just a phrase. It's a way of life that leads to peace, strength, and unshakable hope. There comes a point in life when your own strength feels like it has reached its end. You've done everything you can. You've planned, worked hard, and tried to control every detail, yet the situation remains the same, or even worse. That is when God calls out to you, "Be still and know that I am God." Letting go is one of the hardest things for us to do. We want to hold on. We want to fix everything. We want to know the outcome before we take a step. But life was never designed for us to carry every burden or solve every problem on our own. There is one greater than you who holds the universe in His hands, and the same hands that set the stars in place are strong enough to hold your life together. The truth is, trust doesn't come naturally to most of us. It's easy to say, "I trust God," when everything is going well, but what about when the storm comes? What about when you're staring at a medical report that brings fear? What about when the job you counted on suddenly disappears? What about when the future looks like a fog you can't see through? That's when trust is truly tested. To trust God fully means to surrender, not partly, not only on good days, but completely. It means saying, Lord, I don't see the whole picture, but I know you do. I don't have the answers, but I know you hold the solution. It means loosening your grip and allowing Him to take control. Why is that so difficult? Because letting go means giving up control, and we like control. We want guarantees. We want step-by-step details, but God doesn't work that way. He says, walk by faith, not by sight. He asks for trust even when the path ahead is uncertain. Think about the Israelites at the Red Sea. Pharaoh's army was behind them, and the sea was in front of them. There was no way out. It looked like the end. But what did God do? He parted the waters. He didn't ask them to build boats. He didn't ask them to come up with a strategy. He simply asked them to trust Him and move forward. And when they obeyed, the impossible happened. Some of you are standing at your own Red Sea right now. You've prayed, you've cried, you've tried everything you know how to do. But now God is saying, let go. Watch what I will do. He never called you to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. He called you to trust Him. Jesus said, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Do you know what real rest is? It's not just sleep. It's not a vacation. It's peace in your heart, even in the middle of the storm. It's knowing that you don't have to figure everything out, because the one who loves you already has. Letting go doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing your part in faith and trusting God with the rest. It means you pray, you obey, and then you rest in the assurance that His plan is better than yours. Fear will whisper, what if it doesn't work out? But faith will answer, what if God is preparing something greater than you ever imagined? Some of the greatest blessings in life come after the hardest battles. But those blessings often require us to release our grip and trust God's timing. You may not see it yet, but He is working behind the scenes. He is opening doors you can't see. He is arranging details you don't know about. He is preparing something for your good. So today, stop fighting battles that belong to Him. Stop carrying weights you were never meant to carry. Stop worrying about things that are out of your control. Say these words from your heart, Lord, I trust you. I trust you with my future, my family, my health, my finances, everything. Then let go, hand it all over, and watch God do what only He can do. Because the moment you let go and trust Him fully, that's the moment His power begins to work in ways you never imagined. When you let go, you don't lose. You gain peace, you gain strength, and you gain a testimony that will inspire others. Let go and watch God work. He's never failed, and He won't start now.